on Halloween night 1992, the BBC launched a fake documentary about a paranormal investigation. However, a lot of people didn't realise it was fake, and it managed to terrify a nation. This was Ghostwatch, and this is a really cheap visual effect I'm doing with a lamp to try and look spooky. It's not working. I'm just going to drop the lamp. Anyway, this is my review of Ghostwatch. Okay, yes, so in 1992 the BBC did this whole Ghostwatch thing, which completely terrified a nation. They didn't expect it to have the effect it had. See, what happened was they released this documentary, or this mockumentary, about this paranormal investigation of this house. Now, it's advertised in all the media as a TV event or a Halloween special. They never once used the term documentary. Sadly, this was back before the internet, so all we had was our TV times. It said their Ghostwatch Paranormal Investigation TV show. That's all it said. No one really knew what it was going into it. So when this thing hit the air, a lot of people who hadn't read the TV guides, who didn't really know, would switch onto this thing on Halloween night and thought this thing was real. Now, why did they think it was real? Because it was done perfectly to look real. The idea was they were going to do a paranormal investigation, like fake a paranormal investigation, like you see on like most haunted things like that. This was back before them. They based it on the Enfield case, which if you've seen The Conjuring 2, that's what that film is about. So it's all based on the Enfield case. So what the BBC did is they set up a whole like massive sort of like documentary style thing where they had like cameras outside of a house and people go in and out, and they had pretty big names in the presenting world to present this thing. All of these little aspects they did to make this thing look real. So what was Ghostwatch? As I said, Ghostwatch was planned to be a fake documentary but made to look real, kind of like the original War of the Worlds broadcast, and it had the same effect. I didn't think it would have that effect, but it did. So we start off the Ghostwatch. So as a child, I was 11 years old at the time, and my mum was like mega into paranormal stuff, so she wanted to watch it. She thought it was real as well. A lot of people going into this thing thought it was going to be a real paranormal investigation, going out live from the BBC. So we all sat down to watch it as a family, and I will not lie to you, this show scared the living hell out of me. It was done so well that as an 11-year-old, I believed it. My mum in her like 30s or whatever was believing it. My nan in her 50s, 60s was believing it. It was that good that half the damn nation believed it. So we start off with who was in it. Michael Parkinson's kind of like the head presenter of this show. He's in a studio and he interviews lots of like paranormal experts, and he's like talking to people on the phones. In the studio with him is Mike Smith, who was a very popular presenter. He was always on like Top of the Pops and things like that. Now, our sort of on-site reporters were Sarah Green, which is Mike Smith's real-life wife, and Craig Charles from Red Dwarf. Now, Sarah Green is what kind of got me interested in it, because obviously this is something I could identify with, because at the time, Sarah Green was hosting a children's TV show called Going Live. So obviously a child of my age watching that was instantly drawn into who Sarah Green was. Craig Charles was obviously the funny guy from Red Dwarf. But Sarah Green was going to be in the house as all the events were going to unfold. So she was going to be the one with the mic, with the family, and sort of like with the cameramen in the house during this paranormal investigation. So we start out, we sort of have as all documentaries, this is why this show was done so well. All documentaries sort of have this similar formula of these sort of like live TV event sort of things, where you start off in the studio, you get sort of breakdown of what's happening, and then go to meet all the certain people that are involved in this documentary. So the basic story of Ghostwatch is that this family's been haunted by a ghost in their house. They've nicknamed it Pipes. And the children are obsessed with the idea of a ghost. The mum believes that there's a ghost, and they're terrified. The press sort of got hold of this story, which is why the BBC are now involved in this documentary. And we're sort of ready to sort of go for this adventure. So Michael Parkinson's in the studio with this sort of paranormal expert. She's there with him, sort of psychologist and paranormal expert, those parapsychology people. So he's in the studio with them. Sarah Green was with the family, and Craig Charles sort of interviewing random locals outside. This is why this is so good, because the way they cut to everything is just like a show would have been back in the 90s and the early 90s, and completely believable. So it starts off quite simple. So you get Sarah Green going into the house, talking to all the children, find out who everyone is. The mum's obviously quite nervous. The kids are kind of excited that there's cameras around. And like Craig Charles is doing his jokey stuff outside. And like I said, it starts off really simple. And that's what sucks you in even more, because nothing's really happening at the beginning. There's lots of talk, and they start to slowly, cleverly build a story of what's going on. So we get phone-ins and stuff like that. So people are phoning in the studio, and they've even put the classic number up. If you remember, BBC, especially if you remember Kids TV, of 081 811 8181, which was the BBC switchboard number. And if you know of anything paranormal stories, if you know anything about what's going on here, please call this number. So already it's kind of like that's the number we know. That's the number as children we love to hear on Saturday morning. So you can ring up Going Live and stuff. So we know this is a real thing and a real number. So again, we're kind of like invested into the believability of this thing. So where are we? So yeah, so show starts. Everyone's sort of like, you're getting to know everyone. They start to tell you stories of sort of like the area and things. Craig Charles is interviewing random people outside. One of the stories that he comes up with is actually quite horrific, and this could make its own sort of moment in a horror movie. That one woman says that this area has always been a bit weird. There's a lot of stuff's going on. Like a little while ago, a dog was killed in the park, and the like body was all cut open, and it was just left laying around the park, and it had babies, so the fetuses were all around the park. It's a horrific story. It's in the middle of this like show. But yeah, so saying the area's weird. They start mentioning weird facts about like the area and stuff. So we've got that sort of build up to the spookiness of the thing, and then we sort of hear like the children have been traumatized and stuff. They show a quick video of sort of something that was caught on camera. And this is very clever what they do here to suck you in even more. So they show the video, and there's these girls are in the bed, and the camera starts sort of randomly zooming into them. I don't know why, but the camera sort of looks at them, and suddenly stuff starts getting thrown across the room at these girls, and the girls start screaming. And it's all like CCTV footage, and the girls are having a mad panic attack and stuff like that. So we can understand that this is happening. It looked real. What they showed us looked real, except for the fact that it keeps zooming in, which a static CCTV camera wouldn't zoom in, but this keeps zooming in. So we're seeing that, and this comes up again later, this very clip. So we obviously can see the trauma this family have been through, these ghosting like poltergeist activity in the house. So we're now in the house, and then we get a funny little moment where Sarah Green starts hearing banging, so she walks through the kitchen, and Craig Charles jumps out from a cupboard and scares the crap out of her. So you're getting a bit of a banner. It's Halloween night. You get a bit of banner. It's all good. So then we sort of go back to the studio, and the woman, the investigator, talks more about sort of the family, and she believes them 100% and all this stuff. And then we keep flashing back from studio to house again. And nothing, as I said, nothing's really going on. And then then this is where the weird stuff starts. Now, someone's calls into the studio and says they've seen a figure in the video they showed before. And they show the video again, that I said, like the security footage of the stuff getting thrown at girls in their bedrooms and stuff, all the poltergeist activity. They show that footage again. Only this time, the woman on the phone says she could see a figure standing by the curtain. So when they play it again, we can see the figure. They've actually added it in. So the TV show added that in, so we now can see it. So as an audience, we're like, oh my God, I didn't see that last time. They then show it again, and they take the figure away. And you're like, did I see that? And it kind of plays with your head. Very cleverly plays with your head. Because again, this is going out live. There's no internet, so you can't be like going on Facebook and everyone going, oh, I just saw that figure. None of that was there then. This was literally just like us watching it. So we're watching it, and I remember at this point at the show, and I'm like, now as a child, I'm now getting the goosebumps, the little bit of a, oh, I don't think I like this sort of moment. But I don't want to leave the room, because we're all sitting there as a family watching. My sister's there as well. We're all watching it as a family. And then more of this show goes on. And then what they do is very cleverly, every so often, you'll see this ghost in the footage. Well, as we're going around, the cameraman's going around the house looking at stuff, there'll be the ghost in a reflection. Now, I noticed this. No one in my family did. And I went, did anyone see that? And everyone went, no. And then I kind of shrunk back in and thought, oh my God, I've just seen a ghost and no one else has. Oh my God, I'm the only one. That freaked me out. And as a child, that's got my heart going. I remember thinking, I don't want to see it, but I didn't want to go. So I'm 11 at the time. I don't want to, my sister's 2 years younger than me. I do not want to be running off scared while she's sitting there watching it. So it's like, I don't want to leave the room, even though I'm terrified right now. So, and this is where the spooky stuff starts happening on the show as well, because we start to hear noises, and then the girl, she starts getting weird things start happening, but nothing really major. So then suddenly there's a banging from upstairs. Sarah Green runs upstairs and she sees the little girl is banging the radiator pipes with a hammer, trying to sort of make something happen. And this is where obviously then the people of the thing say this has all been a hoax. It's one big fake thing. Back to the studio, and Michael Parkinson's going, well, there, look, the girl's faking it. We've proved that. And the paranormal investigator saying, no, she isn't. No, I promise you she isn't. She's not faking it. So then we go back to the sort of house, and everyone's like a bit weirdy. And then strange things start to happen. This is where the paranormal stuff starts. So you start getting noises, and things start to go a bit weird. So like the girl, she starts freaking out, and one of them starts getting scratches down her face, and she has this like weird voice comes out of her mouth. And it all goes mental from this point on. So we realised it wasn't fake. The girl was just trying to fake it because the pipes, which is the name of the ghost, had told her to fake it. So while this sort of craziness is starting to go on, we then go back to the studio, and they've had more phone-ins. And one of the phone-ins is a guy telling a story of some woman that used to live there that had loads of cats, who was a bit nutty and used to make children do things. And then we go in to find out another guy that killed someone in the house and then killed himself. And he was locked in the basement. He was eaten by cats in the basement because he basically killed himself in the basement, and he was eaten by the cats in the basement. So when we go back to the house again, we start hearing ghostly cat noises and screaming. Now, as they're running around the house trying to sort of keep track on all the paranormal stuff going on, again, you can see this Pipes character behind a door. So the cameraman runs through the door, sees Pipes, turns, then turns back to look at him again, and he's gone again. And this Pipes ghost, it is a kind of freaky ghost. He's a big, tall, sort of strapping, bald guy, but his face is a little bit scratched up, and you sort of see it only for seconds, but when you see it, it freaks the crap out of you. It really does. So then the show goes boom, and there's stuff flying around, there's lights going on and off, the chandeliers are swinging. The mum's already left because she's gone to do TV interviews and that, so she's gone, and like she starts freaking, grabs one of the children, but one of the children's disappeared. You then hear the cats. They basically mentioned earlier in the show that they can see the pipes sometimes through this crack in the door in the basement, which they've boarded up now because it's the same basement we heard the story about this guy that was killed in this thing years ago. So they now shut the doors, and they sometimes look through this little gap and see pipes, and you can hear cat noises coming from there, and they're trying to get the cameraman sounds down there to try and listen to it. And we go back to the studio again, and there's like Mike Smith, he's starting to freak out because obviously his wife's in this house, and they play it really well because obviously Mike Smith being Sarah Green's wife, there's this real sense of drama that comes from this, really intense sense of drama, that he's now panicking about his wife, and he plays very well. He's demanding, like, I need to get contact with my wife. I want my wife out of there now. So you really sort of get a sense that this is happening. Parkinson's still trying to calm things down, as Parkinson does. I mean, he's this legendary broadcaster. We've seen him interview everyone that was ever famous, like Muhammad Ali interviews, like legendary stuff. And he's there in this, like, in the mix of this, and he's the one trying to he's the kind of calm, level-headed one, trying to keep everything calm. So we sort of flash back to Sarah Green again, and you get this like cat sounds, and they're back into this basement thing, and Sarah Green goes into the basement, as it all kicks off, the door slams shut, and it all goes dark. They lose the feed. So then Mike Smith's like, I need to speak to my wife. You can hear him in the background, like, where's my wife? Get me hold of my wife. Where's she gone? And she's sort of been sucked into the basement. We don't know. She disappeared. And then we go to Michael Parkinson and the paranormal investigator woman, and the studio starts getting weird. It's sort of like wind in the studio, and Parkinson's like, there's wind. Who's ever seen wind in the studio? And you see a camera flying across the thing. And then you sort of flash up to the scenery, you see lights explode, and you see Pipes the ghost in the studio. And then it goes back to sort of the woman. She's like, oh my God, we've created a mass seance tonight. We've done this on Halloween. We have created a giant seance with all these people watching. The power of this has manifested this demon, like this ghost, this apparition, to appear like here now. He's taken over. And then sort of like she runs off, and then we sort of see the studio goes dark. And then we get the creepiest thing, is why I did this light thing with Michael Parkinson, a bit like this. Like he's like right up against the camera, and he just starts saying this like nursery rhyme, really creepily. And scared the crap out of me because I now think Sarah Green is dead and I'm not going to see her going live on Saturday. I think God knows what's going to happen now. So anyway, the show ends. And it was absolutely terrifying. I mean, I've got the DVD here. I'm trying to reach for it. So yeah, this show, it was terrifying. And so what happened after is even shocking. So obviously, people complained. People thought it was real. People had heart attacks. Someone was really ill, apparently. They say someone died because of this show. It terrified so many people that no one could quite believe what they'd seen. Because people that didn't realise it was fake turned onto this thing and believed it. As you would, if you turned over halfway through it, you think you're watching a real life documentary about a paranormal thing on BBC One, and this is like real, because the BBC, the reputable ones that don't, Channel 4 would lie to their teeth and they would make these silly things like this. The BBC didn't. Occasionally the BBC would do like practical jokes. I know in the 70s they did this whole like spaghetti tree thing, like spaghetti growing on trees and that, for like April Fool's Day on one of their scientific shows, Tomorrow's World. But this is like massive. So obviously people got upset. And there's a show in the UK called Points of View, which is basically when you have an issue with saying on the BBC, you'd write into Points of View, or if you liked it, you'd write into Points of View. Back in those when you used to write, you'd write in letters to Points of View, or you'd phone them up and you'd talk about the TV shows that you'd watched, and they'd like air your questions on air and talk about it. And all this Points of View show was people disgusted with the BBC. How dare the BBC fool the British public? How dare the BBC put people's like emotions that deep into it? Now, to me, looking back, I mean, I'll tell you how scared I was, right? My mum recorded it and I taped over that on purpose because I never wanted to watch it again because I was that terrified of it. And a few years later, obviously, I grew up a bit more and I really wanted to watch it again because it was this thing of legend. And it took till, when did this come out? It took till, this was the first time they released it after it went on air. And I think this was in the 2000s, 2002. They released it in 2002 and it aired in 1992. So what, 20 years? No, that's wrong. That is very wrong. You can tell I'm tired, can't you? It was 10 years. It took a decade to show that again. That's how scared people were, and that's how many complaints they had. Here, hold that, Chucky. Yeah, so the thing is, this show was so cleverly done that people believed it. Now, much like when War of the Worlds happened in America, when they did the radio broadcast version, they didn't know what War of the Worlds was. They did the radio broadcast that sounded like news reports and that, and people freaked out, and people ran around in the streets thinking aliens were attacking. This was very much a similar thing where people watched this show and believed it, and they got upset by it. Very, very upset. But it worked on every level it was supposed to work on, and this thing, I think, would have been bigger and more well known if it had been repeated again. I think they had planned to repeat it, but then because of the backlash that happened, they decided never to repeat it again because it terrified them. But everything about this show was clever. The fact they got Michael Parkinson, who was like this very straight but like broadcaster who had done his own talk show for years, and up until quite like recently that he'd done this talk show, he was a massive like British institution. He's like a legend of the British broadcasting world, and he was in this fake documentary. It's like almost like Mickey take, almost comedy piece they did at Halloween. But and like having Sarah Green, obviously pulled people in because she was another journalist. Mike Smith was quite a serious journalist. I know he did like Top of the Pops and Sarah Green going live, but they also had their serious journalism side. So I keep seeing something fly past the window. I think it's a moth because this light's here. So it was very cleverly done to make you believe it. And the way they built the story up with a slow finish, the fact that they had all the trucks that you'd normally see if you saw like a comic relief or one of these like shows that they'd have on where you sort of saw outside broadcast and you see all the trucks and all the tech and all that. They did that so well, and having the house on the street with all the people around it because they obviously wanted to see what was going on in this with all the TV crews and that. Phenomenally done, very well put together, and terrifying. But the thing is, thinking about it now, you could not do that today at all. Because if you put something on today, next thing you know, everyone's on the internet talking about it. Everyone's like sharing their story. So as soon as they saw something fake, they could then rewind. Also, you can rewind back now. So when you saw that ghost at the beginning, we didn't see the ghost at the beginning, and then someone says, oh yeah, we saw a ghost. What you do now is you just rewind back and then go, there ain't a ghost there. What's that woman talking about? And then when they show the clips later on with the footage of there's the ghost, there's not the ghost, there's the ghost, there's not the ghost. And in the studio when they did that, the Michael Parkinson was oblivious to the fact that we could see the ghost. He pretended he couldn't see it either. So such a cleverly done thing, so perfectly done that it managed to terrify so many people, and people believed it. I wasn't convinced it wasn't real until I saw Sarah Green on Going Live the following Saturday. I think this might have gone out on a Thursday or Friday. I can't remember what Halloween was that night, but that was what day Halloween was. Sorry, but that's when I believed at 11 years old that it was fake, because they're Sarah Green back, and she didn't mention it on Going Live or anything. She just did Going Live as cheery Sarah Green always was. So, and then obviously you got to find it watching Points of View on the Sunday where people were having a go about it, like it was all fake and that, and then knowing it was fake after. But I will not lie, I believed that so strongly that was real when I watched it at 11 years old. Of course, this was around the time the X-Files came out as well, so I was kind of into the weird stuff like Ghostbusters and that sort of stuff. But this took it to another level. This took it from fantasy, crazy film, TV stuff to it could be real. And I was massively into the paranormal stuff, but this gave me the creeps. And I kind of think I'd love to see like a remade version, or if they could do it now, I suppose it'll be done online with, I suppose they have done it now with like Paranormal Activity. I mean, you get these ghost chase shows, which I swear are based off that. They are based off Ghostwatch. Like Most Haunted, all these ones where they go paranormal ghost hunters and ghost adventurers and all that stuff. You got these weird channels on the telly and that. They are all based off of Ghostwatch. They must be, because it's very similar formula. But obviously they claim to be real, and they're investigating orbs. Because all you ever see on that show is a moth flying past the camera and they say it's an orb. Or you get a noise, or you'll get like, oh, someone threw a stone at me, but the camera didn't catch it because it happened from behind. But that happens a lot on these shows, these paranormal shows. So I don't believe them. They're fun to watch, and I do get a kick out of some of the group hysteria stuff you see on it. If you ever watch the Pendle Hill Most Haunted, that's just group hysteria. It's brilliant. So yeah, back to Ghostwatch. So yeah, one of the best things the BBC have ever done, but also cost them dearly, because it really, I think there was like lawsuits and things over this show. People getting too scared. People were like, but the funny thing is, even the show did that themselves, because when they did some of the phone-ins, people were saying their children can't turn off. They did say like they would do this phone-in section on the show. So as like when you go leave the house, you go back to the studio, they do these phone-in sections, and one of them was this woman who's like, my son won't stop watching the telly. I can't pull him away from the telly. And Michael Parkin's going, look, it's past 9 o'clock. Your son shouldn't be up watching telly anyway. Turn the telly off and put him to bed. It was just that the way Parkinson was. It was great. So just put him to bed. Turn the telly off. Then another woman said that suddenly a table is exploding. There's glass and blood everywhere. And why are you doing this? Why are you people doing this? And literally, you can go to Points of View 2 days later, and there is the people saying similar stuff that they were faking on the show. So, should the BBC have done this? Me, yes, they should. It entertained a lot of people. It was a great show to watch. Something different on the telly. Something good for. It was Halloween. Trick or treat. You know, it's the whole point of Halloween is to trick you and treat you, and this definitely did both of those things. So yes, I think it should have been done. I do think people do get a bit upset, and I wish they'd replayed it again when I was a couple of years older, because I would have enjoyed it a lot more. Like, I've watched it now, and I'm not going to lie to you, I watch it now, I still get a shiver because of that, remembering back to when I was 11, sitting there in my family home watching it. I get that weird shiver. Like, I watched it and I saw Pipes pop up at the same point where I saw him before and no one else in my family saw him. And I literally went a bit cold. And they did freak me out. But there's something good about that. It's good to be scared. That's why people like horror films. That's why people enjoy these things, because it's good to be scared. And I think because that nostalgic sort of feeling that I get from certain things like horror films and like stuff from when you're a kid, like that's why this guy works so well, because it's that whole idea of a toy is evil. So that freaks you out even more. You get a nostalgic feeling, oh, a toy, I love a toy, and then you get Psycho Chucky trying to kill people. So that's probably why it works so well, because it played that now for me anyway. That's why it works so well now for me. That's why I've watched this a couple more times since. I recently bought the Blu-ray version as well, which I did an unboxing of. If you saw that on one of my other videos, go back and look for it if you want. But yeah, this is the DVD, but I've actually got the Blu-ray somewhere. up there. It's a nice box actually. It comes with a little book and a little. There it is. Look. So that's the Blu-ray, and it comes with a few little books in it, which I think is great. It actually comes with the script, which I thought was amazing. Look, it actually comes with the script for Ghostwatch, so you can sort of like see how they planned all the scenes out and that. So it's if you are into Ghostwatch, definitely get this version of it, the Blu-ray version they released, and not so long ago. It came out this Halloween actually. Definitely get this because you get this like little, you get the script and you get like a little few art card. You get these some art cards. So like sort of Craig Charles. So he gets the art cards. I think this is one of Pipes. So look, there's Sarah Green, obviously who was legend in this. Yeah, yeah, and there's the one of Pipes. So that's the ghost that scared the living hell out of me as a child. But you get these weird little art cards, and you get obviously you get the DVD, and you get this little book here, which is sort of about various things from the broadcast and that. But yeah, it's a lovely little box set actually. I quite like. I love it. I love a good DVD box set with something extra in it. But yeah, definitely worth checking out. If you haven't seen Ghostwatch, obviously we now know it's not real. But if you want to watch Ghostwatch, definitely watch it and take it for what it is. It's a great little show they put on Halloween to scare the nation, and they did it. Well done, BBC. I'd love to do more, but as I said, it can't work now. We can't do that now. This is very much a product of its time. It's just like nowadays you'd put it on, and the second you'd put it on, your phone will beep up and it'll say this is fake, and it'll be over. Like you couldn't do it. Like this information's too quick now. You couldn't do that back then. There was no internet back then. You had to read about it in the paper the next day, or you had to wait for the news broadcast next one to come on. So everything was slowed down back then. So you could sort of revel in it and get the whole way through the show without being able to turn it off, because you can't rewind the show back then. I mean, we could record them onto videos. If you remember VHSs, whack them in the machine like my mum did, and until I recorded over it. I put Who Framed Roger Rabbit over the top of it. Yeah, I think so. I think that saved me. So you put the video in, and you press record, and then you couldn't rewind that because then you'd miss the rest of the show. So you had to finish this show. So you had to watch the entirety of it, and then you could go back and watch it afterwards if you wanted to. So a lot of the stuff that happens in this, with today's technology and viewing, it couldn't happen. Like it wouldn't get you as much unless you were the type of person who would sit there and watch the whole thing, and then think that would be weird, so you go back at the end. But you can pause live TV now, and you could pause it or record it and watch it like 2-3 days later, and it would have destroyed that illusion, because you're going to find out on the internet, oh, it was all fake. So today it wouldn't work, but back then it worked, and it worked very, very well. Too well. I think there was a lot of issue with the BBC afterwards. There was a lot of trouble that come off this, which I don't see there should be. I mean, come on. It was on after 9 o'clock. They did mention in a few of the like adverts for it that it was dramatized. But if you hadn't seen those adverts, like you don't really see them. Like nowadays, you'd go on Google stuff where you get your little like guide that comes up on the TV. Back then, it didn't come up on the TV like that. If you wanted, you had to go on like CFAX, and you'd spend half an hour going through the page before you got to the TV guide. So you didn't have that back then. You had your 4 channels, and whatever was on, you watched it. And I loved it. Well, I didn't love it then. I love it now. But it's a part of my childhood. It's a memory. It's a memory I'm always going to have of sitting there on that Halloween night. My nan sitting in her chair, my mum sitting here, me on the floor. I remember I was sitting on the floor. My sister was sitting on the floor as well. We had a sofa against the window at the time. And yeah, my mum and my sister on the sofa. I was sitting on the floor over here. My nan was in her chair there. And I've got that fixed image in my head of us all sitting there watching it. And my mum being like, with the TV. My nan going like, it's a bit weird, like that. And me sitting there just like bricking it, but being too, I suppose, like manly to want to leave the room, even though I was cacking my pants. And my sister sitting there just like watching it. And she must have been about 9 at the time. So that's why I couldn't leave the room. But I sat and watched it, and it didn't give me any nightmares or anything, but at the time it freaked me out, and it made me want to record over it because I was too scared of it. But yeah, Ghostwatch. If you could think of a way they could, actually in the messages, if you can think of a way they could do this again without it being ruined by today's technology, let me know. Like about it being spoilt by today's technology. Not be funny. Like I like wrestling, and I have to, if I was like, because I live in the UK, so obviously the wrestling's on really late here, when in America it's on like 8 o'clock, over here it's on like 1 o'clock in the morning. So I often don't watch it when it's on, but I wait for the next day to watch it. And if I look at my phone once, it gets ruined. Like the Royal Rumble. If I looked at my phone when I woke up at say 6 o'clock in the morning, the first thing I'll probably see is who won the Royal Rumble. So if there's any way you can think that something like this could be done today without it being spoiled, just let me know in the messages and that, because I'm just interested to see if you know of a way it could be done. But also, what did you think of it? Did you like Most Haunted? Do you remember Most Haunted? Was you like me at sort of the same sort of age as me? I'm like 42 now, so were you that sort of age where you can remember all this happening, and how did it make you feel? I'm kind of interested to say if you had a similar sort of experience to me while watching it. Like, I remember the playground the next day, everyone, sorry, about 2, 3 days later in the playground, everyone was talking about it, like, and everyone's like, oh, it didn't scare me, I knew it was fake, I knew it was real. You guarantee they didn't, I guarantee they all crapped themselves, the same way I did. But everyone was like, yeah, I knew it was fake, but I believed it. I, honest to God, watching it, believed it until, my mum said she believed it until the very end when, like, Parkinson got possessed and stuff like that, because it was too unrealistic. But that's an adult saying, this is stupid. Whereas a child, it's like, that could be real. It could be real. Parkinson could be possessed by a ghost called Pipes. But who knows? Anyway, I've rabbled on enough now. Like I said, get out there, buy the Blu-ray, watch Most Haunted. Not Most Haunted. Don't watch that. Oh, God, don't watch that. That's the Pendle Hill one, just to watch group hysteria in front of your eyes. Watch Ghostwatch and thoroughly enjoy it the way I did. It is a victim of the party. You can see it's dated in the fashion and all that. It is dated, but it's well worth watching. Anyway, don't have nightmares. And I'll see you again soon for some more fun.